And we are live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a new show for the Fantasmagorium show called Lightsabers, Blasters, and Droids, where Catherine and I, my esteemed co-host, will break down the Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1. I don't know if we'll break it down so much as just kind of review it. Kat might want to walk through the episode a little bit, and I'm just kind of here to guide the ship. But yeah, so I think there's kind of highly anticipated Mandalorian Season 3. I think coming off of the Book of Boba Fett, people were like, you know, how are we going to jump back into the Mandalorian world, or the world of the Mandalorian? How does, Grogu fit in? How do they get back together? All, a bunch of questions up in the air. And so the episode dropped this week, and to be perfectly honest, and maybe this is because I'm coming off of Andor. The show was fine. I don't think any of the substance of the show, I'm not trying to compare Andor with the Mandalorian. They're two different things, but I really felt the shortness of this episode. It really stood out big time from what we got with Andor. And I'm hoping that going forward in the future, maybe we can start lengthening these episodes and lengthening these seasons, because I think what we got with Andor was really special. It felt more like real streaming TV, or even TV, than these little, 28 seconds. Because after they do the previously on and then roll the credits, your 32 or 38 minute, long length of show is about 24 minutes or 28 minutes, and it really went fast. Anyway, so my overall kind of feeling about this episode was, it felt, I hate to use this word filler, because everybody uses it all the time now, but it kind of felt like a filler episode to me. It didn't really feel like we were laying down too much of table setting for what was to come. I was surprised that they some things that we'll probably talk about here as we break down the show. But I was surprised we got into, the big alligator monster so quickly here. I do like the fact that we do kind of jump back in, but I don't know. It didn't quite work as a season opener. And I would say, just right off the bat, this is probably the weakest season opener from all three seasons. Anyways, Kat, welcome to the show. Thanks for doing the show with me. We're both huge Star Wars fans, and we've been trying to do some kind of Star Wars show for a very long time, and we just decided this was the right time and place to do it. So, yeah, thanks for doing it with me.
Yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding I've never minded how short the episodes are. I've never really understood that criticism, because if the episode feels like it did what it needed to do, then fine. Whereas, problem with this episode is it is filler, because it's just him checking in on people. It's like, hi, Grief Karga, hi, Armor, hi, Bo-Katan. It's like,
right.
It's not really doing anything. And, he's got this crystal with the weird writing on it, and they don't present that as a mystery as to how he got it. They're treating it like we should already know. And it doesn't, it's like, and according to Foley, 2 years has passed since the Book of Boba Fett. And it's like, well, it doesn't feel like 2 years has passed. What's he been doing for these last couple of years?
So I didn't know that, because it certainly does not feel like 2 years has passed. At least they didn't make that.
That's what I heard from Reed on another review stream I did, that Filoni said it's been 2 years since, they brought either 2 years since Luke took the kid, or 2 years since Luke gave the kid back. And it's like, either way, that's still a lot of time, and it doesn't feel like that much time has passed.
Yeah.
And like, why exactly? Like, he goes to Navarro for the sake of trying to rebuild IG-11, and then he goes to Bo-Katan to see if she would be interested in going to Mandalore. But it's like, you could have done that the week after the Book of Boba Fett, or
Yeah,
go
absolutely.
and recruit Boba Fett to go to Mandalore. It's like, what have you been doing this whole time? It felt like it picked up right after the ending of Book of Boba Fett, but even then, the episode didn't really accomplish anything. Is killing the sea monster seems to have acquired him enough goodwill to have a meeting with the armorer again, where she just reiterates what she already told him in the Book of Boba Fett, which is, you're not a Mandalorian anymore, blah blah blah. So it's basically trying to catch people up for those who didn't watch the Book of Boba Fett, which doesn't really help because they don't explain why he has the kid back either for those who didn't watch the Book of Boba Fett.
Right.
Stranger still is that the title of the episode says Chapter 17, The Apostate. And it's like, well, you can't go from Chapter 16, The Rescue, from the end of Season 2 of Mandalorian to this Chapter 17. You're going to be lost. So that doesn't work. I like how Navarro's kind of grown. And, each time we go back there, it seems like it's evolving. And I like the understated humor with Grief Karga, how he's a lot more vain and his ego, or he's got a gold bust of himself. He's got the 2 droids holding his robes. He keeps correcting people to call him the High Magistrate.
Right.
It's like, okay, it's kind of funny, but and then introducing the aliens that the Babu Fricks and showing that the Qualkian monkey lizards are no longer in cages being roasted, but they're like free in the trees. So it's like, okay, your development there. The only thing that had any point of interest to me was like really what's going on with Bo-Katan, because the excuse she gives that, oh, well, after, the whole Darksaber thing, nobody follows me anymore. They all split up and became mercenaries. And I'm like, well, they were willing to follow you before when you didn't have the Darksaber. And the way she tries to shame him by saying, oh, well, your factions and the Children of the Watch and everything are responsible for the fall of Mandalore. It's like, well, you're just as responsible with your clan. So I have a feeling it's either her character flaws or something that she's not telling us is the real reason that she's just lazing about doing nothing. That we'll probably find out about later, but at the same time, it didn't seem like she was doing anything or had any good reason not to go to Mandalore with him. Like she even says that, oh yeah, the stories about it are about it being like a cursed hellscape is superstition. And so he's like, yeah, well then why don't you come with me? And she just kind of rebuffs him by saying, oh well, it's cursed, and like you could tell she's trying to make up excuses not to go somewhere, but she's also lazing about, not really doing anything.
I know that this is a walking show, and it's part of the motif of the Western motif, walk everywhere. It's kind of the thing. So we got that long walk down the hallway to where Bo-Katan's lazing about there. But I really wish they would have shown more of the destruction, like maybe as the Mandalorian and Grogu are coming into Mandalore, seeing more of the destruction there and what happened, during the purge and all that stuff. I felt like they kind of skipped over that, and we just got to the walking down the, the corridor thing. That was one thing that really stood out to me. Is like, wow, man, it would be nice to have seen that more of that.
Yeah, and then I have a feeling that the subplot with the pirates is going to set something up, kind of like Trapper Wolf showing up at the end of the 6th episode of season 1, and knowing that Mando saved the Matt Lanter character, and that came back to help him in season 2. So I'm guessing that's what they're doing with these pirates, because Mando makes the point that you really want to let him go, and he's like, oh, he'll tell everybody that this place isn't to be messed with. And I'm thinking, no, especially when you see how big that pirate ship is. And the asteroid chase was okay, but the Pirate King kind of goofy, and it's like, okay, you could clearly tell they're setting this up for something, but I was,
it felt right out of Clone Wars and Rebels, and actually, and a little bit. I don't know if you watched Resistance too, but it very much so. Kind of
that type of goofy, especially Resistance with the the pirates and that.
The pirates and the I mean, I like the makeup. I like the practical effects. I thought the pirate looked pretty cool. That like the main pirate guy, and Swamp Thing Jr. as the king pirate dude. That's fine. I like the effects work there, and the ship was big and menacing. That was cool, but it was just kind of, I don't know. It felt like Resistance. It felt like silly, and that's one of the things I thought Resistance could have been really good if it wasn't the fumbly hero.
Well, the thing also with Resistance is they kept recycling this plot idea where a new imposter insider person shows up, and you find out that they're actually affiliated with either the First Order or with the pirates or something. They successfully keep their cover, and you find out that they're evil at the end of the episode, and then they just lay low, and then they repeat the thing with a new character the next week, and then they dragged out potential ongoing so long for ongoing stories that it just didn't work, and I just kind of lost my patience with it. And like, this is kind of, it's like you're introducing so many different characters for setting things up that there's no real payoff until you get to the crossover with episodes 7 and 8, which is the only time that it kind of came together a bit. And I didn't really care for the animation style. I thought the brights were like way too bright, like way high key lighting that just washed it out. I just didn't really get into it. But with this, I just mostly felt distracted that, okay, why does he have this crystal? Why have we skipped where he got it?
Right.
It has been 2 years, as Foley said. Again, regardless of whether that's 2 years after Mandalorian Season 2 or Book of Boba Fett,
Right.
it still feels like it's kind of odd that any amount of significant time has passed. So it's just, I mean, for a series that only has 8 episodes per season, it does feel kind of like filler. It's like you could have just told the story and introduced those characters organically. Like, there's really, like, again, there was really no purpose in him going to see the armor other than to have the armor there for I guess, to establish that they're not hiding out as much anymore. They seem to have found their own planet where they can have their ritual out on the beach. But even then, it's like, well, it's not like we really needed to see that. So it's like, what's the story with this season? Because it seemed pretty clear at the end of season 2 when he agreed to take on the armorer's mission that, you have to go on this vision quest to Mandalore. And after the events of Book of Boba Fett, he was still committed to do that, because he specifically went back to Boba Fett in the Book of Boba Fett to find people to help him go to Mandalore. So the idea that he's been bumbling around for another year and a half or so, it just feels like, really? You didn't? It's like, what have you been doing? It's just so it just kind of didn't really orient much of the story and was just a little bit of a kind of a letdown. Honestly, I agree. It's the weakest of the season.
Yeah, I think that really the takeaway for me was, if you were waiting, like if you were a fan of Andor but really wanted more of the Star Warsy stuff in Andor, this brought us back into that Star Warsy stuff and all the Star Warsy things that we've grown to love about these shows, especially the Mandalorian universe, the Mando universe, or whatever. So it had all of those things, all those elements were there. It just, the story, I just didn't feel like it pushed the story anywhere, except for, like you said, it was kind of a check-in. He was just checking in on everybody and making sure we know that these people are still here and around.
The one thing I thought was odd is that when he first reboots IG-11, it reverts to trying to kill the child. He's like, oh, that must be its default. But if that's the case, that implies that he was specifically built for that purpose, which doesn't really track, because that's one of the IG series droids. Granted, that's, Legends material, but it's still, kind of there. So that's a little, okay, that was a little weird, and it felt like they did that for laughs more than anything else.
And do you think there would be actual like, I didn't understand why there was anything left. The last time we saw IG-11, he had a bomb strapped to him. And there shouldn't be, I mean, maybe little pieces of him lying around, but not full on like armatures and things like that.
Yeah, they showed that the whole torso, the left arm, and the head were still salvageable, and it's like, no.
Yeah, I don't think so. But.
Yeah, it wasn't, because you see him like completely blow up, and then after the boat comes out of the cave, there's no IG-11 pieces anywhere. Like, he got totally incinerated and blown away. So,
so
because the bomb was like inside his torso. That's where the bomb, because the torso opened up and you see the little bomb there, and it literally detonates right there. So that's
right there.
Kind of absurd. But unless it's supposed to be parts from a different one of the droids, kind of like you see the heads of the IG droids used for the drink dispensers in the cantina.
Right.
Which, who knows? Maybe they were supposed to be from those IG droids that got repurposed for that. So I don't know. Maybe
they repurposed. Yeah, maybe they took other IG parts and just said, "Hey, this is IG-11 or whatever." Because that didn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm like, wait a minute, there shouldn't be any parts left for this guy.
And given that time has passed, also, I'm surprised that his ship is still, the N1 fighter still has its exoskeleton kind of exposed. Like, it doesn't have, he didn't put any plating on it, like protective plating. It still looks like the raw.
Right. For 2 years, he didn't. 2 years, he didn't do any upgrades to that Naboo starfighter.
Yeah, and I would assume that we might get a flashback episode at some point to explain where he got the crystal. Because again, if you're starting basically with a clean slate after Book of Boba Fett, why skip that?
Right.
But they also didn't present the fact that he has this crystal as a mystery. They played it really casual, as if you should already know what it is. And I'm sure somebody's already just I guess I think it was written in Arabic, the little writings on it, and somebody's probably already deciphered it. I tried to figure it out, but I couldn't find anything on the internet lately before the show. So I don't know, somebody will figure it out. But yeah, it just kind of felt like a letdown because at the beginning of season 2, they did something totally different with the whole episode with Cobb Vanth and the Sand People and the all that. That was a great episode because it was. I mean, yeah, granted, it was a bit of a adventure of the week, but I think they had a little bit more value for what they did with the Cobb Vanth character, bringing it back later on. Whereas here, it's not really doing anything. It's like, yeah, we already know these people. What else is new?
Right. We're not. Yeah, it didn't seem to move anywhere. Or I guess you could say it's table setting. And I was just talking about this the other night in the last couple of weeks when we were doing our Picard show. Is that the first couple episodes are table setting episodes for a season. I get that, but there's we have no idea where this is going, if it's going anywhere. And the promise that we got, at least from the trailer for season 3, is that we're gonna see a lot of Darksaber stuff. We're gonna see a lot of Mandalore and Mandalorian clans, probably fighting for over that sword and who's going to lead and all of this. And I'm like, I kind of figured, or I thought that that's what we might jump right into in the first episode. And it just wasn't that. I didn't expect what we got.
Yeah. It's just kind of, oh, here we are,
Yeah, right. More of the same. And so I hope that the rest of the season, they, starts getting it into gear.
And on top of that, it didn't even feel like there was very much world building going on, because you can do a table setting or filler as long as it's expanding on it somehow. And it didn't really seem to do that. It's like, you don't need to have a filler episode just to show that Navarro is continuing to evolve. It's like, yeah, we already know that. You could establish that anytime he goes back there. And so it just kind of,
and you could have done that. You could have done that literally in a 2 minute, two minutes out of the 28, and spent the rest of the time. Let's explore what the hell's going on Mandalore, And I get that they have to, he had to go back and see the armor. Okay, cool. He helps them out, and he gets, goes and talks to the armor. Armor tells him, you're not a Mandalorian, and he still, he wants to please mommy, so he's like, I'll go do whatever I have to. I'll go bathe in the ocean, and the oceans below or the caves below Mandalore. So I mean that part was cool, and I thought we were gonna get I just thought we were gonna get into that a little quicker than this, and like I said, the short episode, it was really shocking, not shocking, but it really stood out to me, and coming off of watching Andor and stuff. So hopefully they can get to it. We don't have that many episodes. These seasons are fairly short. So not only are they short episodes, but we're getting a short season too. So I think we're still only running 8 episodes, correct?
Yeah. It'll end on April 19th.
Yep. So, yeah, we're gonna have to. Hopefully, they start getting into the meat here in the next episode. Which I haven't.
I could do, like, again, I don't care about the runtime so long as they make good use of it. And this episode didn't do that, because it's like, okay, you have 2 interesting story points here. One is the crystal that he has, and 2 is what's going on with Bo-Katan, and they don't spend time on either of those.
Either one, yeah.
Like, they spent so much time on Navarro and goofing around with the Babu Frick guys and then the pirates that it's like, and I get what the argument really was with the pirates. It wasn't about them wanting to drink in the bar. It was them challenging the fact that, the fact that Grief Karga has kind of become this dainty, vain guy, and is it like, hey, you used to give us jobs here. You paid us money. You were one of us, and now you kind of turned your back on everybody. It's like when he says, I need a marshal, it's like, well, you could recruit any one of the bounty hunters, in the network, because it seems like Navarro is thriving enough that you could pay them for a consistent job,
Sure.
But maybe they don't, but he's not doing that. He's completely like trying to ignore that he used to be a part of that life, almost like he's ashamed of it or something.
Right. Which he might be, but
yeah, he might be, but
and but they spent way too much time. I know it seems like they specifically ran with let's rebuild the IG unit just to get the Babu Freak characters in there so they can sell toys. And I get that. That's what this franchise is. It's a toy seller.
Well, that's why they brought Grogu back, and they completely undercut the ending of books. Like that, it was like people were wondering, like, what are they doing? It's like, oh, lone wolf and cub, but it's like, no, it's about the kid helping to deprogram him from his whole cult-like attitude and bringing him back just as, again, to sell toys, because that's what the whole fucking Babu Frick thing is, where he tries to cuddle with him or eat him, and they're trying to do cutesy shit to
right,
and they're spending time on that, but there's no story.
Right. Like, take that time and show us what's going on in Mandalore. Show us the devastation. Show us, and let's get into why Bo-Katan's just sitting there and just angry and pissed off. It's obviously, she's still pissed at the whole Darksaber thing.
Yeah, that's why I don't get. She didn't just challenge him for it right then. Why not? I mean, obviously she doesn't like him because they haven't hung out for a couple of years, I guess, at least since the rescue. So, I mean, there's no reason for her not to challenge, because like when Moff Gideon even said at the end of season 2 that he can't give it to her because she can't accept it from him because you have to win it in combat. It's like, well, then why not just challenge him for it? Because clearly she wants it. Because I still think people still say that Din Djarin is going to be on the throne of Mandalore, but I don't picture that happening. I think that
I don't either.
Like, I think that Paz Vizsla at some point is going to challenge him for the sword again, because he's the one who feels that he has the birthright. He's the one who's clearly more passionate about the culture and everything like that, and probably would make for a good leader. And even though the rumor was that there might be 7 seasons, I know back in September 2020 when Giancarlo Esposito was promoting the show, he already said way back then that they'd already written through season 4.
Yeah.
So maybe it's true that it's going to go on that far, because I don't know when the big crossover event is going to happen or what show the crossover event is going to be.
Right.
Because after this, we got Ahsoka the same year, which I take it is probably going to take place.
Favreau confirmed not too long ago that season 4 was written. So he had previously written season 4, so we know we're at least getting that. But I don't know. I don't know how far into these.
That 2.5 years ago, yeah.
So I don't know how far into these other shows they want to go before they do the crossover. I assume they don't want to. I assume that each new show is going to get a full first run season before we do any kind of crossover. So it might have to go at least a few more seasons. So maybe the 7 does make sense. Probably.
And then because this episode also was filled with, again, those Easter eggs like the Purgle and Babu Fricks and bringing in the pirates, like you said. I think maybe it was very deliberate having that resistance type vibe to it to show you that these people are out there.
Yeah.
But it's like I feel that there's not much to talk about with this one.
There really isn't, because as much as we would have loved for it to be amazing and move story forward, it just really didn't. It was, I think you put it amazingly. It was a check-in show. It's like, let's go check in on this guy and let's go check in on this one and let's see if this lady's around. And it just, oh man, a little disappointing. I would have thought they'd at
the very least have dropped a hint of what was going on with Moff Gideon, because we know he's going to be back at some point. He's not just sitting in a jail doing nothing,
Right.
He's going to be back at some point. So, because obviously they wouldn't let Giancarlo read through season 4 and stuff if he's not going to be in it.
Right.
So, so that was that. Like, give us a hint that there's something else out there or something that, because trying to build the anticipation for the journey to Mandalore, it's like you did that back in season 2. And you hinted at that in Book of Boba. It's like, how are you going to hint at that? Why don't you just do it already?
Yeah, totally. I don't know. I mean, I liked the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. I was not a fan of the Book of Boba Fett. I think they really dropped the ball on that. I know that was a passion project for Jon Favreau. I wish cooler heads would have prevailed. I wish somebody would have pulled the reins back on that, because they just did not.
I feel that whole show only exists because the immediate fan reaction to Boba Fett showing up in season 2 was so positive that I'm convinced that they probably had them quickly shoot that post-credit scene and greenlit the show, because we know that the only reason this Mandalorian show exists because they took a mulligan on trying to do a Boba Fett movie or series for so many years.
Right.
Oh, but now how popular it is. Let's just greenlight it and shoehorn it in. And because the same writing team for the Mandalorian seasons 1, 2, and 3 were writing the Book of Boba Fett. It's like,
which is baffling because they changed the nature of the character.
Well, to me, it made sense because I felt it was because it was completely rushed. Like they didn't, that whole series felt like they didn't have any time and they just got thrown into the blender on it. And the fact that that's why Luke and Ahsoka, like, why is Ahsoka on Luke's planet? There's no real reason. It's just because, it'll be cool to put two fan favorite characters together.
Correct.
Why do we open the episode From the Desert Comes a Stranger with, Cobb Vanth being hinted at who the stranger might be, but then we take 25-minute detour to go to show the training stuff and show off the deep fake and then you cut back to Cad Bane. The editing is so bad. It's like you have these 3 different things going on here that have no relationship to each other. It's like, no. And it's like the penultimate episode of your series. It's like it just felt like it was an assignment by Disney to, you need to put in these characters. We need to sell more Grogu toys. It just did not feel authentic to what Favreau and Filoni would have done if they probably had full control, which is why I don't think that they had full autonomy.
Favreau wrote all the episodes of that.
Right, but I feel that was a Disney mandate. Shoehorn.
It could have been. It could have been. Yeah, I mean,
same thing when having, with looking at the Colin Trevorrow script for episode 9, it was great. There was no reason to not go with it. That feels like a Disney thing. We don't have Carrie anymore, and we can't have a movie without surrounding it around one of our legacy characters. We can't throw out this script. Let's bring back, Ian, because Palpatine fans will just accept that because we don't trust our new characters enough to let them carry the movie.
It's a bummer too, because I thought for sure that what Jon Favreau was going to try to do is basically what Josh Trank was going to do with the movie, make it basically The Sopranos in the Star Wars universe, which sounded awesome.
Meanwhile, that post-credit scene when he walks into Jabba's palace and just shoots Bib Fortuna dead, just sits on the throne like a boss,
right?
And then there's a huge disconnect with the rest of the show. I mean, I didn't mind the flashbacks showing how he survived the Sarlacc pit and the Tusken Raiders. I thought that was kind of interesting, but
it was cool. Yeah.
But the way the show went, it was just they dumbed down Boba Fett to the point that he's making stupid mistakes that even in canon he would not be making. You could tell that when he says, I have to defend this is my town, he wasn't just speaking from a point of obligation because they've already paid him tribute. You could tell he was saying that as if he meant it, like he had some strong relationship with these people. Like, what the hell is going on here? It's just not, the Mos Espa Vespas. It's like, we want to pay tribute to American graffiti. It's like, okay, great. Put them on Coruscant where they probably belong,
Right.
It's like,
I mean, we're completely out of control. Completely out of control with that.
That whole thing was just a mess. So,
it was a mess.
But then again, the same thing happened, I think, with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Too many cooks,
And then just went the way that did, because they had like something like 6 or 7 writers, and only like 2 of them were consistent through all the episodes, and one of them boasted that he hadn't even seen Revenge of the Sith when he wrote it. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll give you a pass for having not seen it at the time they hired you, but once you get the job, you got to feel obligated. You gotta do the homework, Yeah. And I feel that those types of mistakes are to blame for those 2 series going the way they did. But this isn't a strong start for season 3.
It's really not. It really wasn't. I was pretty disappointed.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it has. Like I said, yes, it has all the trappings of Star Wars, the pew pews and the space battle, which was pretty cool, and it had all of that stuff, all that Star Warsy stuff, but. Especially coming off of such a strong showing for Andor, it was a real step down, and I believe it's a step down from what they've had from, like I said, from the opener of season 1 and 2. I thought both of season 1 and 2 opened strong, and this one just didn't. Yeah, that's unfortunate. But here's to hoping that episode 2 will be better, and we'll start getting into the meat of the story. I mean, we only have 7 episodes left.
Yeah.
Right.
Crazy, because it's like when you look at the animated, I mean, I get it, the animated stuff is cheaper, but they got 16 episodes of Bad Batch, and and you did 8 episodes.
Animated stuff is cheaper, but not much cheaper. Animation's
that's true.
It takes a long time.
Yeah, it does. But this was just. it almost felt like they were a bit too cocksure of themselves, because it's like, the first episode, the pilot of season 1 had a great cold open. Like, it establishes who this guy is. He's a badass. And then season 2 had another great cold open where he's, on that other planet. I can't remember if they named it at all, where he's walking down the dark streets and he leaves that guy dangling to be eaten by all the dogs. It's like, that's dope.
Yeah.
There is really no cold open for this. It's just the ritual with the sea monster. And it's like, it just pales in comparison to the way you started the first 2 seasons. And you got to know your, know your audience and know your.
So now there is before we go to the chat and kind of wrap things up here, there was one thing that I did really like, and if you know, if you don't, it doesn't matter. At least it doesn't matter yet. But Grogu, when they're traveling in hyperspace, Grogu looks up and starts seeing the space whales, so which I thought was pretty cool. It's like I said, if you know, if you don't, it's not a big deal. It's not pivotal to understanding what's going on. It's just, it's just something that I figure that if you don't know what the space whales are or where they came from or what they do, it's just a something that Grogu can do because he's tapped into the Force, and he sees that in hyperspace or hyperdrive.
Yeah, I think they're putting that there because they're probably going to show up in the Ahsoka show.
So a little dropping little hints. So I thought that was kind of cool. It was good to harken back to Rebels, which was one of my favorite Star Wars, shows of late. I think both Clone Wars and Rebels feel the most like Star Wars. Up until we get to Andor, I thought Andor really felt like Star Wars as well. The Mandalorian, I like. I just don't. It does feel like Star Wars. I don't want to hate on the Mandalorian because I do like it, but I felt those were stronger shows. But we'll see. We'll see how this this not only season but series kind of ends up.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I don't agree it's going to be Mando sitting on the throne. I don't see
a lot of people think that the whole series as a whole is building up to that, but I don't think that's really what he wants. It's like, it's interesting that he still cares enough about being respected by those that spits it, because the armor says pretty specifically that you took your helmet off, you're not a Mandalorian, ignorant of the fact that these other factions, including the Vizsla clan, which didn't think that way, pre-Vizsla didn't feel that way.
Nope. Right.
But all these other guys don't feel that way, but she's so secular and set in her ways that I don't get why, Din Djarin cares enough that he's potentially going to risk it all, just because, especially now that he's got the responsibilities of the kid again, but he's going to go there just for the sake of earning the respect of one small secular group who he doesn't even seem interested in hanging out, living with,
Right. And I don't know that it makes sense for him to rule Mandalore. Really, what's he gonna? I don't know. Maybe
because so far he hasn't really expressed the desire to do that. He's just because again he would have been happy to give up the Darksaber until Gideon told him why she can't take it. And so
he's like handed it right over. No problem. I don't care.
But at the same time, you could tell he's still prideful because he didn't yield to Paz Vizsla in their fight. He still wanted to fight him. Right. Yeah. So it's like, okay, it'd be interesting. I take it that whenever he does go to Mandalore, it's going to hit the fan, and then he's going to maybe either lose it to somebody or maybe something. I get a sense that something big's probably going to happen this season because the trailer did look quite good. Hearing good things about it this season, so we'll see.
Okay, so do we want to rate these before we go and talk with the chat real quick before we get out of here? Or do we want to give a rating, or do we just want to say we're going to keep watching?
I can't think out of 10. That's right. We have to think about what we're calling our ratings. We had martinis, we had bullets, we had batarangs, and now we have
well, there's a ton.
How many jetpacks?
I don't know. Jetpacks. Yeah.
Or for the subset of the show.
Beskars.
Mandalorian subset. I don't know.
All right. Lightsabers, blasters, droids.
I rate it like maybe a 6. Like a 5 or 6. It just felt kind of flat.
I agree. I think I'm right at 5. It was right in the middle for me, right in the middle. So 5 lightsabers.
Yeah, I'll give it 5. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where it is. Okay, let's go. Let's go jump over to the chat and see if anybody showed up to watch us rant about the Mandalorian. Black Phillip Alvarez says, "New show? Question mark? Yes, we're giving it a shot. We'll see how long it lasts and if anybody gives a damn.
Well, we'll at the very least cover the 8 episodes of Mandalorian.
We'll do that for sure. Edge of time. Crocky
did nothing wrong.
Hashtag. I'm not sure what that is. Well, maybe I'm.
Oh, the crocodile. Oh, the crocodile.
Oh, Crocky didn't. Okay, yeah. Well, yeah. He was just out for a, early morning munching.
Yeah.
Black Phillip Alvarez. Who? I don't know. Edge of time. Star Wars. Yeah, I know a lot of people are over Star Wars. I get it. Edge of time. The opening monster. Yeah. Hakeem. Hello, everyone. Hello. Let's see. Black Phillip Alvarez says, "Where's Scotty? Scotty got a divorce with Star Wars, so he doesn't. He doesn't do the Star Wars.
He hates everything about it, even if he hasn't seen it. He's one of those people."
Capfinity. Where's Scotty? Yeah, the same thing. He just does not. He doesn't do the wars that are in the stars. Cinema Gulp. I clicked on this link and saw sausages. Must have been the ad. Must have been. Got to get the ad blocker, bro. Edge of Time. Scotty let Star Wars go. Yeah, R.I.P. Yeah, he sure did. Mega Reacts. Hey, Mega Reacts. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to everybody in the chat for joining us, by the way. Star Wars is trash. Just here to drop a like. Oh, cool. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, no, I understand that people don't like what they're doing with the new Star Wars. There's a faction of fans that feel the same way about Star Trek, and basically all entertainment IPs going through this right now, where nobody likes the new stuff, and I get it. It's fine. It's okay not to like things. It's okay to like things.
Yeah, I think it's gonna get
definitely not our job to convince you one way or the other. We just
I think it's gonna get better now that Bob Iger's back. It's one of the things he mentioned on the earnings call last week was that they need to slow down with Marvel, and I think the same is going to be said of Star Wars, because he said that keeping people subscribed to the service is not about throwing quantity over quality. It's not you can't worry about meeting that type of quota because it's not feasible with these shows costing like $100 million a piece to do that, especially since they're not going to meet their subscriber goals by next year with the the pandemic and there's all that kind of stuff going on. People are cutting the streaming services left, right, and center. And I think that reducing cutting down the output will emphasize quality, because they did feel like they rushed the Book of Boba Fett. I mean, they barely had finished filming and post-production on Mandalorian season 2 before they were already rushing into that instead of focusing on Mandalorian season 3. And so it's like, slow down and we'll get our ducks back in a row and we'll be on it. So
yeah, I also think because Iger was the one that put this deal together in the first place, he's probably one of the first things he said. He had a conversation with Kathleen Kennedy about was, listen, where are my movies? It's been 5 years, 6 years since we had a movie.
That's it. It just seems like they're money gone into Disney Plus to fulfill the mandates.
Yeah.
And it's like they need to get back to why, make Star Wars a theatrical experience again. I mean, it's like the fact that within a week of Rise of Skywalker coming out, they were already swapping all the merchandise at the stores with Mandalorian merchandise tells you that you need to save the theatrical brand of Star Wars right now. If that's how the reception was treated by the company for that episode, for your last theatrical engagements, you need to get back on track with this. So
yeah, and that movie was such garbage that you can't even talk about it anymore. I do think that there's I think Star Wars. I think Star Wars is best when it's long form storytelling. I think that bore itself out in both the Clone Wars and Rebels, and again here in Andor. I do think Star Wars lives on TV that doesn't mean to say that there shouldn't be a thriving Star Wars theatrical release schedule as well. I think the two can go hand in hand.
I think that tonally Star Wars is best fit as like the movies. They were, episodes. They were like the Flash Gordon adventure
Sure.
series. Like I love the quality of Andor, but I'm not gonna lie. A lot of times that series was dragging, like a lot. But even though the quality was there, the acting was there, all that stuff is there. But I still felt like at the end of the season, it felt like the season just kind of ended. Like usually, even in long form storytelling, you feel like you've achieved a story or the end of an ongoing plot where it just kind of felt like quasi cliffhanger. Like, okay, we got to this certain point, and I don't know. I feel that they could achieve both. Like have like how hard is it to follow your classic Star Wars formula?
Yeah.
In terms of what makes it fun and enjoyable. Like look back at the template of what they did for Clone Wars, except instead of breaking it up over 3 or 6 esodes, put it in like a 2-hour movie.
Sure.
And instead of animated live action. Like if they wanted to get people excited for, live action Star Wars by bringing back Ewan and Hayden, then do a live action Clone Wars movie. Yeah. Like people would eat that shit up.
Yeah, totally. And I don't know. Again, I don't get to make any decisions for anything.
Neither do I.
In the entertainment world, but if it was me, not only would I do theatrical movies, but I would take. I think I've talked to you about this before. I would take a bunch of the books. I have a list of 10 right now that I would take and do not huge, oversized budgets, but respectable budgets. Make these smaller movies. And just adapt these novels right into movies. There's 10 I know of that would be great right now. Really solid Star Wars books. Turn them into movies. Put them on Disney Plus. So now you have movies in the theaters. You have movies on Disney Plus, and then you have these short or shorter television series, like this Favreau Filoni verse. I think if they did that, you could drop. Depending on the schedule, you could drop 1 or 2 of those Disney Plus movies per year, just adapting those books. They don't have to be, $200 million budgets. You can do these things for probably $90 million a piece. Dropping a bucket for these guys. They could do that. But
yeah, because I think that was the budget actually of excluding the marketing. I think the first season's budget for Mandalorian was like $80 million.
Yeah.
So, and that still had the quality of a theatrical movie in terms of the effects and the setting and all that type of stuff. So yeah,
right. They could do that. Anyways, okay. I think so. We're both kind of meh about the Mandalorian season 3 episode 1. We will watch the next episode. We're in. We'll come back here on Fridays and talk about it for half an hour or so. And I think that's it for us today, Kat. What do you think?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, right, smooth show, and then maybe next time we'll have more to talk about. Hopefully,
yeah, but hopefully it lands on us better, and we're more hyped about talking about the episode and breaking it down a little more. Yeah. So until then, for Catherine and I am Steve Foley, and we will see you next time.